well done today.
It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all
That's most of America right now. Now that Georgia is eliminated thanks to Notre Dame getting the job done down in NOLA, 23-10. A lot of people expected a little more scoring than this, but this is the Notre Dame brand of football when they play against top 10 teams, tough defense, opportunistic offense, and they got the job done. And now we finally know who Penn State's opponent is. With me tonight again, the amazing Bill Carroll, Greg Rector in the house, and of course, one more time for 2025, Brock Vieira, S.I. I can finally say S.I.'s Brock Vieira.
There we go. S.I.'s Brock Vieira.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's enough of the niceties. I want the apology from Brock. Come on.
I apologize for thinking Georgia would not have their heads up their rear ends. I apologize for thinking that a team that has been lauded as the next dominant force in all of college football would not, for lack of a better term, shut the bucket. I apologize for thinking that a team that is filled with five-star players, filled with guys that want to redeem themselves for an SEC championship loss last year, would show up and show out when the lights are brightest. And you know what? All credit to Greg Rector. Of course, I'm making fun of it. I've been talking trash all week saying that Georgia was going to run over Notre Dame, and that's not what happened at all. Notre Dame not only showed up to New Orleans, they showed out. They played sound fundamental football in a controlled environment, something that I thought that was going to be to the detriment, not playing in an outdoor arena. And not only that, they executed in all phases of the game. Al Golden's defense showed out today without any doubts about it, forcing turnovers, stifling the Georgia passing attack, keeping Trevor Etienne in check. They also shut down the tight ends. I really thought Eurosec and Delp were going to go off today. They had nothing going for them. There was realistically no juice on that offense at all. I have some words about Mike Bobo, their offensive coordinator, coming up later in the show, but I'll save that for now. Lastly, I do want to add Notre Dame's defense was absolutely phenomenal on the day. Not only did they play sound, disciplined football, they were also extremely aggressive. Maybe a little bit too much to a point where they're committing penalties. But again, when you're in a fist fight like this, sometimes you got to turn it up and just deal with it at the end of the day. But once again, they made the stops when they needed to, especially in the red zone. And that's why the Fighting Irish are moving on to the semifinals. Once again, Marcus Freeman, been a big fan of him for a long time, and he just notches another notch right on his collar, and can't wait to see what they do against Penn State moving forward.
Amazing.
Brock, what else can we say? I think Greg is very happy with everything you just said, even more than the outcome of the game itself. But overall, guys, listen, we got to talk about this. Everybody was talking about what they're going to get from Gunnar Stockton. Everybody goes, well, he can run. He can do the things that Beck can't. He still can throw the football. And we saw some of that tonight. But kudos to the Notre Dame defense for keeping him in the pocket for the most part, for giving him looks. They made him hold the football. We saw that, four-man pressure. That left tackle couldn't hold up. They're swapping left tackles out because the Notre Dame pass rush was getting there with four. And when he tried to scramble, there was somebody waiting for him at the second level. So we're seeing that, teams are definitely employing the spy method. And when they blitzed, it got home as well. So there's a whole nother thing there with this Notre Dame defense. There was some holes in the secondary. We saw when they realized they were keeping a spy in for the quarterback, they could sneak the backs out and get some big plays down the field. So Mike Bobo did make some decent adjustments at times, but overall, he couldn't get it done in four quarters versus the Irish defense. Even though, yes, they did have turnovers, 23 is not a huge amount for Georgia to overcome. We saw them go down 30 to Bama and come all the way back in that game. So they are capable of doing it. They couldn't do it versus the Irish defense. And that right there, the biggest story of the night. Riley Leonard was the leading ball carrier for Notre Dame, as well as with a modest passing attack tonight. Overall, a very opportunistic offense. Special teams came into play. I think overall we saw, but like you said, Bill, and I'm gonna let you lead to that point. But overall, better execution by the Notre Dame. I wasn't a fan with how this game was officiated. I thought, honestly, I don't know what these officials were calling tonight, where you call the ticky-tack call we saw in the first drive that Notre Dame deserved to get the pass interference on. Okay? Then you turn around the next drive, and you're watching the Georgia corner grab the guy by both shoulder pads, pulling him down. And there's no flag. You see the face mask on Riley Leonard, no flag. You see the hold called later. Then you go, where's the hold on Notre Dame? Then the one that got me was the motion penalty where they say, oh, he didn't stop. I'm an offensive coordinator. You don't have to stop. You just can't go forward.
That's right.
So, I don't know where these guys are coming up with these calls. It's baffling to me. And honestly, this is the kind of stuff when I'm coaching, I'm either in the box or on the sideline losing my mind, because this is the stuff that you don't understand. First of all, you're calling stuff. I'm watching guys get grabbed on one side, not getting called, but I'm watching everything get called on the other. That pass interference call, another bailout call on a badly thrown ball by a quarterback could have changed this game, because that put Georgia inside the red zone. If Georgia scores a touchdown there, we're talking about a totally different outcome. So if you're going to call them, plain and obvious, do not call these calls like that where the ball's hitting the guy in the back because it's underthrown, and because he's jumping into the defender, you're going to say that's pass interference. If a defender can't go through a receiver or a hitch route, you sure as hell can't go through a DB on an underthrown ball. I mean, come on. This is just basic football that I wish referees would finally understand. That's the part that bothers me about these games. We're talking about 12-team playoffs and teams fighting for their lives and all this stuff, and coaches fighting for their jobs. You have guys out there calling stuff that doesn't make any sense. To me, that was the only thing that made this game kind of upsetting, was the fact that you're watching this game and you're going, what are you calling here? What is this? This doesn't make any sense. Even when they did call that penalty, they couldn't even figure out where to spot the ball. Okay, and this is a veteran officiating crew.
Right.
Okay, so that's the part that really troubles me about this game. Otherwise, I thought it was a well played game. Unfortunately, not as well played by Georgia, but overall, it was a well contested game that was very entertaining. But Bill, I know you got something to say.
Yeah, well, I said it before and I'll say it again. To me, the story of the game is coaching. Did Notre Dame do very important things at important times? And once again, that leaky left side of the offensive line for Georgia was another big factor. But to me, the big thing was coaching. You saw them set up and create situations where Georgia seemed to not really have an answer or not really know how to respond, and they should have, right? I mean, like, that's the thing that you keep thinking of. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do more things to create situations for your young but mobile quarterback to use that one thing that could have equalized the problem that you were having? And once you realize that wheel routes, draws, and screens, you're going to pop one if you keep going to them. Why didn't you keep going to them? Because you saw how they were defending you. You weren't going to be able to get too many deep shots, traditional deep shots. But wheel routes can turn into big plays because you hit them sometimes, 10 to 14 yards down the field. And if there's a linebacker who's now trailing a faster back, I mean, what linebacker would run down, Etienne from behind? So I was a little surprised they didn't keep going back to those particular things. And yeah, you saw, when he forced them into that, when Freeman and his staff forced them into that late in the game, into that offsides, right, on number 11. I mean, that was completely orchestrated by their coaching staff. They were playing, as they say, three-dimensional chess, while it seemed like Georgia's staff was playing checkers. And yes, I mean, the officiating, every team's going to think the officials screw them, right? You saw Smart losing his mind at various times about the officiating. I don't think it was a determinative factor in either direction. If I talk to Georgia fans, I promise you they're going to point out that, whatever happened somehow, hurt them more. But what really stayed with me was, like I said, the all three phases, right? Special teams, and Greg and I talked. I saw Harrison be this dynamic player at Marshall, where they threw the ball to him at all three, like short, intermediate, and long passes went to him at Marshall. And he was also an All-American return specialist on top of being a terrific wide receiver. And like with Chris Mitchell, I thought, oh yeah, they're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands. They'll throw it to him deep. They'll hit him on, slants, and then slant and goes. And I was surprised he's seen the ball so little. I think he's had less than 30 touches the entire season on offense, which is shocking to me. I thought between, pass attempts, traditional pass attempts, and end arounds and things like that, and even just lining him up in the backfield occasionally, he'd have, 40, 50, 60, maybe even touches altogether. So I was a little surprised that he came in under 30 touches for the whole year. But once again, back to what I said, preparation, coaching, execution. That's it. Preparation, coaching, execution. The talent, if you just go position by position, is very, very even. And in some positions, weighs on the side of Georgia. But of course, the as so many games are decided, line of scrimmage. And that's the thing you always hear people say about the SEC, right? Oh, the SEC. That's the difference in the SEC and everybody else is that line of scrimmage ball, right? Their defensive players are, NFL guys 3 deep, and offensive line is NFL guys 2 deep, right? There's, double-digit future NFL pros on their offensive and defensive lines. You hear that all the time about at least the top-tier SEC school. And they got beaten on the offensive and defensive lines consistently, and they had no answer for it. They didn't seem to know how to maybe roll protections or give extra help. They didn't seem to do enough with like wham or chip or crackback or anything. Leaky left side. And to me, that was the game.
What about you, Greg? You're the happiest guy on the panel tonight, Greg. So, you got to have a lot to say.
Well, I'm just still soaking up the apology I received from Mr. because he told me 13 nights ago that Georgia was going to dog walk the Fighting Irish. Well, guess what? I said otherwise, and I was correct.
Finally,
the Notre Dame Fighting Irish defeated the Georgia Bulldogs in every aspect of this game. Special teams, offensively, defensively, they beat the Georgia Bulldogs. And yes, all of you SEC clowns out there, you can suck it again. Just like I said with that school up north beating your beloved Roll Tide. Well, there's your big bad Bulldogs who only put up 10 whole points against Notre Dame. Yeah, who can't do anything, don't have enough talent, and all this other BS. The Fighting Irish came out fighting. This is the Fighting Irish that I grew up watching in the 70s. This isn't the Brian Kelly dog days or Bob Davie and all those other clowns. This is a Fighting Irish football team, and I love every second of it.
Thumbing his nose at the SEC faithful, off the victory. Listen, I'll tell you what, guys, when we talk about this game, it was just a couple of months ago that everybody was looking at Riley Leonard and saying, this guy can't get it done. He's got to go. They better find a quarterback or else they're not going anywhere. And boy, oh boy, is he thumbing his nose at everybody right now because he just carried this Irish offense basically to the next round. I mean, we talk about it. There wasn't a lot of passing game tonight. They had a hard time protecting him to begin with. I mean, because that Georgia front was really getting after him. But his legs are what mattered tonight. In that last run that kept the drive going on that final drive where he hurdles the corner and gets undercut in the air. There's a play
that's the number one safety in this draft.
Malachi Starks.
Starks that he went over. So it wasn't a corner. He was playing safety. But anyhow, Riley Leonard and his legs, which is exactly what I told Monty months ago, would carry this Fighting Irish offense. And he did it against this so-called great SEC team that I keep hearing about. Well, guess what? The SEC has stopped. Texas A&M didn't stop neither. All of these people who have said things about Riley Leonard this year, I'm sorry, but this guy is very quick. He's a lot quicker than people think he is for his size, and he is he's going to move up on draft boards. He's going to move up on those draft boards. I have him. I still have him going day 3.
Yeah.
Day 3. But the Cowboys need a backup quarterback, and I'm fine if it's Riley Leonard. I'm fine with this.
Yeah, well, okay.
Wait, hold on. Talk about. Do they really need a backup? I think Cooper Rush does a pretty decent job.
No, he's not. Stop it.
Listen, I'll tell you this much. I'm appreciative of what he showed tonight, part-wise, ability-wise. I still think in order for him to have that second part that you're talking about, and we'll talk about that when the draft show starts on the 22nd of January here on Team NBS Media, we'll talk about all those guys. I think what you have to see what the second part of it is the passing part.
Yeah.
And that we haven't seen. He couldn't manage. He couldn't read the blitzes for me. So that's one of the problems he has.
Yeah.
At the next level. Number 2, he has a hard time throwing in the tight window. So that's a whole other issue. So there's a whole list of things he's going to have to overcome if he wants to improve his draft stock. I think this run is improving him as a leader and a general and a guy that they had questions about doing all that most of the season. I think that's starting to go away. But now it comes down to when you're talking about the draft, you're talking about, yes, you can run the football, but can you throw the football in the tight windows? Can you read the blitzes and beat it? And I think these are things he's still struggling with here at Notre Dame because he has the weapons to do it. We've seen it tonight where he had Faison. You had some of the other receivers out there, the tight ends, the backs. You know, he's holding, and checking down at the last second. And when he does check down, those guys are having to make Herculean efforts to get yards because he's allowed the defenders to collapse. If he, instead of seeing the blitz and immediately throwing to the hot and let that guy catch in space, tuck and turn, where he can make plays. So there's a lot of that. You got to look at his development as a passer and say he's at that level. I think there's still a lot of work going to be done. I think some teams will look at him as a project. That day 3 label will come in. I think that's where that comes into play. I think he's a better prospect than Ian Book, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. Jaden Harrison, by the way, Bill, had 17 receptions for the entire season so far. 17.
Right, 17 receptions. I think they got him some touches in a few in the run game, but still was under 30 total touches. Yeah, which is nuts.
Which is crazy to me. I wrote about this in my preseason article about Notre Dame's offense. Well, they got Harrison from Marshall, and every week I'm going, well, where is he? Where is he? Because he is a deep threat. He's not just a short and intermediate route guy. He can go deep. What has Notre Dame's offense not had? A deep threat. I don't understand that from Coach Denbrock. I really don't. But, you know, hey, if they want to keep running the football with Love, Price, and Leonard, like I said before, that's a tough triple threat to deal with. I don't care.
I think the concern, I see what you're saying, but I think the concern, and it is more tonight than any other week. We didn't see this against, Indiana, right? But we saw it tonight. And I think the concern is you saw in those early drives when they were struggling to find a rhythm, they were concerned with this Georgia front, the pass rush, the ability to control the running game, right? So they were trying to try to probe and figure out ways to attack this Georgia front because they just were not comfortable with him sitting back there, dropping back, and throwing against this defense. But when they finally realized you can do it, but it has to be on the early rundown. It has to be on first down and 10. You can't do it when you run the ball on first down and get 2 yards, and then try and do it on 2nd and 8 where they're anticipating it, they're blitzing you, that pass rush is getting there because now they expect they can't run the ball now, they got to throw it. Let's go get them, right? So you have to do it when they have the fear of the Notre Dame running game, where the RPO action works, where the ability to throw the quicks work. That stuff is where they finally got it going later on. And I think that's what they have to really consider. When you're going to worry about things, you're going up against Penn State, guess what? They can rush the passer as well. So if you think that You're going to go into Penn State and just be able to do the same thing you did against, say, Indiana. Do the same thing against, say, Georgia Tech. Where you ran the football against those teams and didn't have to worry about trying to make those tough throws. Guess what? Penn State can shut down your running game. Now, granted, Scatterbo had a great game. Not Scatterbo. Did go over 100 yards. I'm sorry. Jonty did go over 100 yards versus them. I'm getting my names all mixed up. There you go. Jonty did go over 100 yards, but it took him 30 carries to do it, which tells you they can stop the run. So they're going to have to throw the ball against Penn State and do it effectively, and they're going to have to do it more than 10 yards down the field. You're not going to be able to just dink and dunk your way down the field versus Penn State. That's the big issue. They were worried about it against Georgia tonight. You saw that early with the play calling. They figured it out and got it going a little bit later. But even towards the later part of the game, they realized, listen, just run Riley Leonard. Don't take any chances, no turnovers. Let's get this clock down and let's hold on to this lead. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I just want to add to everything that you guys are saying. Georgia shot themselves in the foot repeatedly in this game. Now, I'm not saying that would have made the difference because, again, Notre Dame was flawless in everything they did, especially on the coaching end. Wow, that was just a masterclass. But you look at all these things, ETN fumbling in the red zone, that weird penalty by a practice squad player that it's still mind-boggling to me. I feel like Mike Tomlin all over again, you know? You look at their red zone efficiency in general. You look at their inability to be a consistent offense on the early downs. You look at the end of the first half sequence, and that's the part that I kind of want to get into. When I will jump on my soapbox now, if you gentlemen don't mind. I'll bet it's one Mr. Mike Bobo. Mr. Mike Bobo is a coach that I have not known personally, but I have witnessed for some time because, of course, he had a head coaching stint at Colorado State, and Colorado State is in the Mountain West, and me covering and following Hawaii and UNLV for the past 15, 20 years. I've got a chance to witness it. And even then, I was asking myself, what are you doing? I have not asked myself that question about Mike Bobo, what are you doing, for a long time because he just was kind of fading around different spots. So Auburn for a little bit, but it's Auburn, so who really cares? La-di-da. Then because it comes to Georgia last year, absolutely puts in a phenomenally awful performance in the SEC championship game last season with some of the best talents in the country. And you think to yourself, okay, Brock, maybe you're being a bit too hard on him. He's going to get it together come this playoff cycle. And this was the perfect opportunity for him to prove on the national stage in this 12-team playoffs that he is a top coordinator. And he didn't do that at all. When you look at the end of games and the first half sequence, you know you're going to go downfield. That's the only reason you're not moving the ball and going into the locker room down 3. No problem. We're going to dial up a deep shot. We're going to give Gunnar Stockton 2 options, see how the defense aligns. No worries at all. Maybe we can get a nice shot in the middle part of the field. Clock is going to stop. We get down there, clock it, set up something. Who knows? We got options. Why are you running a play with 5-man protection against a dominant 4-man pass rush from Notre Dame when you're dialing up a deep shot and you know your quarterback, who's very young, is going to need time to get the ball down there? Also, why is Trevor Etienne on the field? He's not going to be able to help with the pass blocking. And yet, you didn't even assign him to be a pass blocker. You had him run out on this little check down route that does nothing for you because there's not that much time left, and you end up getting strip sacked, which immediately leads to the touchdown. Another coaching error that I couldn't understand is it was clear as day as soon as Notre Dame got the ball, they were throwing the inside slant. There's no doubt about it. You saw the alignment, and then you saw Georgia's defense. They literally allowed it to happen. One-on-one coverage, this amount of separation. The receiver guy, I don't remember his name, who caught it. It was a spectacular display of coaching malpractice to end that first half. You move on to the second half, your defense started to show up a little bit. You're starting to get a little bit momentum, and then you're having Gunnar Stockton run out to his right-hand side where you're shutting down half the field for him, and you're not letting him get out there, and then you're not taking deep shots down the field when you need to, but then you finally take a deep shot down the field, and the guy can't even catch the ball, and then the last sequence when you got the defensive pass interference penalty, and on 4th down you're able to drive. To me, you gotta punch it in right there. What they did was absolutely just egregious. Why they didn't set up even a single trick play to get this offense rolling. I mean, you got to try something at that point. I still don't understand. And then the last thing that just really bugged me is that you're down under 2 minutes. You're down by 13 points. You got to get the ball deep downfield. Why are you setting up things for Gunnar Stockton to dink and dunk his way downfield? That's not going to work. It just felt like Mike Bobo was not willing to pull the trigger at the right times, or just in general, to be able to put his young quarterback in a position to make a big-time play. I think Gunnar Stockton's play should not be reviewed in a negative way. I really don't think he did much wrong, honestly, considering the situation and what he was given. But you expect your coordinators, especially with this much time you've had since the SEC Championship, to design a proper game plan in order for you guys to go out there and execute against an Irish team, which you guys got another game of game film on when they played Indiana like 10, 12 days ago, however long it's been. So I think that Mike Bobo is a guy that you really have to evaluate moving forward. And I think with the core group of young coordinators coming up to the ranks that have modern ideas, perhaps it might be time to bring in another guy to maybe co-coordinate or something, because whatever they're running right now is not working in present moment, has not worked this season, and quite frankly has not worked during Mike Bobo's tenure.
Harsh. The hate is flowing through you, Brock. I feel it. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. Listen, I'll say this. As much as I despise a lot of what I see when it comes to college offense, at least Mike Bobo understands that the running game is meant to go forward, right? You turn on so many college games and you see so much sideways running. Right? At least he understands that part. Now, with the passing game, he doesn't seem to consistently get it, especially when certain teams are attacking certain ways. I think there's so much more he could have done to help this young man. He didn't have a bad game, 19 of 30, 225, a touchdown, 0 INTs, but he did get, hit from behind and sack fumbles. Not on him. You got to solidify the left tackle. If you know you have a left tackle issue, there's nothing wrong with helping him out. The tight end chipping and releasing, the back chipping and releasing. Why is it only the back stays in for blitzing? If you have edge rush issues, they're the perfect guy to bang them right back into that tackle so he can actually make the block. So there are ways as a coordinator to help your players, and he didn't do that. But you know what? If you watch the next level, there are coordinators that make the same mistake. So it's quite common.
It is, but something that I thought was very irritating for me anyway is that you have a young quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. To me, what you want to do is you want to use motion to isolate receivers against defenders in one-on-one coverage and attack levels of the field. I thought for sure Georgia was going to utilize a strong wide receiver screen game early in order to open up everything down the field, get Stockton comfortable with quick passes, really get settled into things, and then we can start opening it up with a balanced offense as we move forward. They did not do that. And you look at every single time Georgia had a big-time play, you would expect a strong offense coordinator to dial up something that could capitalize on that, maybe go back-to-back on a big-time play, or potentially catch a Notre Dame defense off guard, maybe a halfback draw, a screen pass, whatever it is. You just never really saw that. I also thought there was going to be a tremendous use of motion, pre-snap motion in this game in order to help Gunnar Stockton diagnose some of the coverages that Notre Dame was running. Because when you have strong defensive-minded coordinators like Marcus Freeman, like Al Golden, you know they're going to give you unique and different looks to confuse a young mind. There's so many simple things they could have done and they could have talked about within the time between the SEC championship game and tonight that would have made things a lot easier on the entire team, especially the young quarterback. Now, of course, it's very easy to say these things after the game, right? But you also had a half to kind of talk about this and figure it out. There was no reason Georgia could not have scored more than 7 second-half points. I'm sorry, there really isn't. And had they been able to be a bit more proficient, Notre Dame isn't able to put up 23 points, and Georgia for sure is able to put up a lot more than 10.
Well, I'll say this in his defense. Some of the stuff that you're saying he did do, right? But it becomes a little hard as a coordinator to do a lot of the wide receiver screens when they're playing man on most of it. It's hard to do that versus man because usually those guys are tighter up to the line. It's harder to make those blocks on them on the edge. And that second guy that's covering the guy that's making a block is usually right there in his face when he catches. So what you try to do is, I think one of the more effective things to do were the mesh routes, the pick routes, where we like to run those pick concepts with the slant out concept. Things are those where you have to move it, two receivers move into an area where one comes over the other and he takes out the other's man. That's the stuff that's going to free you up a lot more. It's a quick concept, so he's not waiting forever for these things to open up. So it allows him to go, okay, 1, 2, he's breaking, the guy's getting picked off. I know to throw it outside. Or he's coming off inside, I can throw it underneath. Because you could also run that same concept with an out and an under underneath that clears the outside receiver coming inside, and the out breaking route clears the defender. So there's certain ways you could do that to help your receiver out on quick throws. They had opportunities. They seemed to want, and they tried it at certain times. They tried to take advantage of one-on-ones. They did try to go back to the back. If you remember on that final drive that they had, not the one with less than 2 minutes, the one before Notre Dame peeled off 6 minutes of clock, where they ended up on the 4th down trying to go to the fade in the end zone. That 3rd down play, they tried to run the back on the option, right? They tried to give him the option route. And what Notre Dame did was smart. They sat that one defender that was on him outside of him. And if he went inside, there was the inside linebacker waiting on him. So they inside outside of him. So if he tried to go either way, there was a defender waiting on him. And that's what Gunner saw. And he tried to force it in over the middle because the guy he was waiting on was the back. And he was covered both ways. So he had nowhere to go with that. So it's one of those things where you have a young quarterback who's not used to seeing some of those reads in live action. You saw that tonight. And then he's not exactly the greatest at managing the line of scrimmage, which we saw that tonight as well. Because if he would have saw that when he moved his receiver over in motion and put him to that side where the back was, it saw the coverage, he could have saw that they were tipping that inside outside well. And all he had to do was check for something else. He could have went high low in the back of the end zone. That might have been a better idea than trying to go to the back. So and they kind of made a point of that on the broadcast as well, saying that yes, Beck has seen all this stuff. He understands how to manage the line of scrimmage better than, of course, Gunner is going to do. So Gunner Stockton's going to do. So I think that's where you kind of see that difference as well. We see it at the NFL level too. Younger quarterbacks that don't understand the coverage as well, how to adjust, they're going to make those mistakes. Veterans know how to do it. So it's just he's going to have to play more football. He'll get the opportunity. I don't think he's running away from Georgia anytime soon, and I think they're committed to having him going forward. Now that Beck is going to the NFL. So with that being said,
yeah,
I was
going to say, Jeff, you're absolutely right. I just want to add that when you do some of these things that I was talking about earlier, you get established the type of coverage that Notre Dame is doing, so then you can exploit it doing different things later. I just also want to add, looking at this stat line now, of course, the numbers are a bit skewed because they were trying to pass the ball late, but there's no reason Gunner Stockton should have thrown the ball 30 times in this game. I felt that they were getting enough penetration on early downs through the rushing attack. It should have been Marty Schottenheimer, Marty ball. And honestly, I think that Notre Dame felt that very comfortable peeling their ears back and going right after the quarterback because they knew, regardless of what they're doing right now, Georgia offensively, they're going to throw the ball eventually. And okay, I know people are going to be like, oh, no, duh, they're going to throw the ball eventually. But what I'm saying is they didn't stick to the run game enough for my liking in order to really make Gunner Stockton feel comfortable. I also just think that when you look at the way Notre Dame's offense was set up, especially early in this game, the punt, it's a very effective tool. And Georgia's defense was holding Notre Dame in check time and time again. To me, like I spoke about it with Greg. I mean, I was talking trash. Oh, Georgia's going to dog walk. But realistically, I was like, Georgia's going to win. But it's going to be one of those close, gritty games. They really shut down the second half, really keep things nice and tight in the first as much as possible. I felt that Georgia opened it up way too early. And knowing the kind of players and the situation you have, it just felt very out of touch. Now, my next point I want to make before I give the floor back to you, gentlemen, because I know you guys have a lot more to talk about, is that Georgia in the fourth quarter, especially defensively, I don't know if it was fatigue or mental fatigue or what, was just horrific. How they were letting Riley Leonard not go up the middle. Up the middle is one thing. but getting him outside and allowing him to run past the defenders, that was extremely shocking. How Kirby Smart didn't organize that a bit better when Notre Dame ran the punt team off the field and back their offense back on. I mean, maybe it's just me because I saw it. Texas A&M against USC. USC was at the 2-yard line in the Las Vegas Bowl, and A&M came essentially in and out defenders to the point where a delay of game penalty was called. If Georgia just stayed a bit more calm and was doing some of that, Notre Dame would have been able to get that offsides call. And again, I would have been screaming at Georgia. I mean, maybe I would have been wrong, but I would have taken that chance. Don't jump at all, because I would have put all my money that Notre Dame had no intention of snapping the ball. If they did, I can live with it. But I cannot live with giving them a free first down and that starter, especially with 9 minutes left. You have them backed up inside their own 20. You allow them to punt. Georgia, we always have that second half juice. To me, you got to work with the remedy that's worked with you this entire season. But again, to Joe's point, this is not the same Georgia team as it was in years past. And hey, there's a reason why Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, and Notre Dame are the final 4 teams remaining in the playoffs.
You're right.
Which also means that every single team that had the bye, they all lost. Oh.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's look at the teams that had the bye. And I think this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the playoff, which was I don't believe that just because you win the conference means that you get the bye. I believe it gets you an automatic bid.
Yeah.
It shouldn't get you the bye, because we saw it. There were conference champions that were not better than the teams that got at large bid. Okay, so to me, it should just be you do this tournament just like you do your NCAA basketball tournament. If you're a conference champion, you get your automatic bid. If you're an at-large bid, all the seeding comes down to ranking. Where do we rank? Okay, not so much about conference champions get these automatic buys and bids, because now you're seeing it. It really didn't matter. Okay, they weren't better. They weren't better. You can make that excuse for Oregon. You can't make that excuse for Boise and ASU. You definitely can't make it for Georgia. Okay, Georgia didn't look. When they came out in this game, they didn't look flat. Okay, they came out fired up just like Notre Dame came out fired. So this wasn't a team that came out looking flat. They weren't sharp. Now, I don't know if that's because of lack of play. It could be because of a different quarterback. There's a lot of different factors in this. It could have been the fact that the game plan Notre Dame had. But the fact of the matter was, when you look at this, I don't think their play was affected by the bye. But I'll tell you what, there were teams that didn't deserve the bye that got it and then found out the hard way they weren't better than the team that's been playing to it. So I think that's where you saw the difference.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Jeff. I just wanted to point out that all 4 teams that got the bye all went down. Yeah. They all went down.
Yeah, and there's something like I said, I didn't agree with that when they said, "Oh, they're going to give these guys bye." Listen, my many years and Bill going to attest to this as well. The many years of dealing with the powers that be of college football, there's always going to be preferential treatment to the power conferences. So that's where that whole bye thing came in. Well, even SEC champ deserves a bye. So does the Big Ten champion. So does the Big 12 champion. And no, they don't. No, they don't. You earn the bye by earning it all season long and getting ranked high enough to deserve it. You don't go get the bye. You don't go win your conference. I'm Georgetown. I'm going to go 9-8 all year long, win the Big East, and get a bye in the tournament. No, you don't. You get thrown in at the 8th seed, because guess what? You play like an 8th seed all year long. That's where you're going to be, even though you won your conference. That's what should happen to you, not this whole automatic conference. You get the buys. No. Go play on campus like everybody else if you weren't that good. If you lost 3 or 4 games and still won your conference, meanwhile, that team that lost 1 game all year long has to go traveling around, that's on them. But guess what? You shouldn't get it just because you won your conference and you lost 4 games. No. If you lost 4 games, they lost 1. And say, okay, well, you got a mulligan for that 1. You were a better team all year long. You get the bye. And guess what? That conference champion gets the host, which is not bad at all. But you know what? You weren't better than that 12-1 team. So I think that makes more sense than to turn around than to give these guys automatic buys. Now, listen, did Boise really deserve a buy? I didn't think they did.
No.
And I like Boise State. People are going to say, "Oh, you hate on." No, I don't. I'm not hating on Boise. They did not deserve a bye in this format with this proper playoff team. They were a darn good team. They beat up on everybody they were supposed to beat up on. But guess what? We found out in the playoff that they didn't deserve a bye. No, they did not. Okay, they could have played at home.
The same thing applies with Arizona State.
Yeah,
they should not have gotten a bye. Arizona State should have had to play that first game in. I'm sorry, they should have. And guess what? I'll bet you had they played that one game that they should have been playing in, they wouldn't have been so sound asleep those first two passes by Texas.
Well, I'll tell you what, Greg. Even let's flip it a little back further. Let's say Iowa State beat them. Did Iowa State deserve did they deserve a bye if they got it? No.
None
of those teams deserved a bye. They all lost They lost a bunch of questionable games this year. Okay, so
now we're gonna have this ballyhoo and cry from these power conferences that well, no, we don't want this bye anymore, so we got to have 16 teams.
They're not going to say that. They will take the bye to the next round.
Day. Oh yeah.
They are not. They're going to stand on that tooth and nail because you do not know. They had their this year where they're going to say we were figuring it out, we were tinkering with things, but trust me, those power conferences are not going to let go of those buys. Well, not willingly. No, they're not.
No, absolutely not.
I also think that we are missing an opportunity here. I think expanded playoff. I know people are going to call me crazy. I know you three gentlemen in particular. I think we're missing an opportunity for expanded playoff. I'm talking every conference champion gets in. And I think that we could create it in a way that you would have much more exciting games in the beginning portion of the playoff that would help translate better and get people more intrigued. Now, of course, you can't avoid a blowout. It's college football. There will always be a talent discrepancy. But I do think it would be kind of interesting if Tennessee went up to Boise State. That would be kind of cool. You know?
Yeah.
So I think that, but the problem is that if we put the 16 teams without having that addendum that every conference champion gets in, it's going to be like 8 of them are going to be for the SEC, despite the fact that we just saw how they performed in the playoffs this year, you know. But I just think that it'd be kind of cool to have that, and maybe we kind of do a thing where like the bowl games. Well, I want to reduce the regular season schedule, but that's again a side point. But it'd be kind of a cool thing where we have like the conferences play in bowl games, and the bowl games decides who gets the buys instead of just having it be automatic. I think that'd be kind of cool. But
my original suggestion was when they wanted to expand this was, hey, listen, take that Trojan Bowl, you know, and turn it into a playoff game. Don't leave the 6 and 6 teams in it that where you get half the stands are filled. You want to fill those stands in those smaller bowls, turn it into a playoff game. Because now you're going to get everybody wanting. Look at these playoff games. Look at what happened today. This game was supposed to be played yesterday. We know about the tragedy that happened. Like I said, our thoughts and prayers are still with those in New Orleans over the tragedy. But this game was supposed to be played yesterday. Usually what happens is people were planning on going back home today. You would have seen less people there. Those stands were still packed. There was still a ton of people there, a ton of energy in that building. So obviously the playoff games matter to these bowl games, making them playoffs. So why not take those, like I said, the Lemonhead Bowl, stuff like that. Those no-name bowls that half the people don't watch, because there's MAC teams in there. I don't care about that. I don't want to see Ball State. I don't want to see Miami of Ohio. I want to see the U. I don't want to see that. Well, guess what? There are people that do, and unfortunately, it's not in a million, but they get enough viewers to justify the bowl. But you want to make those even more popular? You could have made those playoff games. They'd be very popular. So, but again, I am not on any playoff committee, so they ain't listening to Jeff Barnes' opinion. But nevertheless, to me, that's a money maker. Everybody wants the money to flow through these bowl games. That's the way you do it.
For me, since the Rose Bowl was switched from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 teams playing each other and all that, I don't care what bowl you are. I could care less. I don't want these bowls to be given any more significance than what they have already gotten out in the media and all this other garbage. I'd rather do exactly what Nicole Lauerbach just suggested. They all play their games at their college campuses. This is what college.
You're supposed to be a traditionalist. The bowl games are tradition.
Yeah, sure they are.
I don't get me wrong. Like I mentioned, I'm in favor of having more games on campus. I don't think all of them should be on campus. I think that there is a sort of like festive nature that it perfumes the spirit of college football by having these neutral site games. And I know that people are going to say, Brock, you know what we're talking about. And you might be right. But I think it's awesome when teams, especially teams we don't see, get to go to these big NFL stadiums. I think it's a privilege for these kids to be able to play at Cardinal Stadium or at, the Rose Bowl or wherever. I think that it's really awesome. And I still want that to continue. I do agree with Greg by saying maybe we should go back to the traditional sense. Now, of course, it's going to be hard because of conference realignment, but I do think we could have a natural West Coast, Midwest Rose Bowl again, and that would determine potential seeding in the playoffs. Either that or we could reduce the seeding and use the bowl games as entryways into the playoffs. There's a whole bunch of ways you can go about it. But I do still like to watch the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and all the bowls, but I do want it to have a lot more ties to its origins, especially with those conference origins than we have now. Like it's nice to watch Oregon versus Ohio State at the Rose Bowl. And I would have loved to last year watch Michigan play Washington at the Rose Bowl. But of course we had Michigan versus Alabama, and Alabama at the Rose Bowl just doesn't feel the same. Neither did when it was like Georgia and Oklahoma. It's just no. Like no.
Exactly. And that's because of this.
Don't let the Rose Bowl committee hear you guys moving the Rose Bowl around, and they ain't gonna like you guys talking about it. But it's a New Year's Day game. They don't want to hear nothing.
Oh, yeah, because they don't play. No, I know. I'm sorry. If you can have the national championship in 2004 on like January 6th or something, we've already ruined it. It's been 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what, Rose Bowl committee, all right? Nobody cares about the parade, all right? You know what? For 7 years, my mother recorded the parade, never watched it. She fast forward to the Hawaii part and delete, okay? No one cares about the parade, all right? Who cares what day it is? I'm sorry. All we care about is the game. And guess what? If it was Sunday and NFL is on, less people is going to care. All right? And they definitely watch the parade over NFL.
Got a point. Right? So,
you know what they should do? I'm back on. You know what? They should have all the bowl games on Christmas. All right? Now we're talking. All right? Or Thanksgiving. You know what? Let's have it all on Thanksgiving. I think that'd be kind of fun too. Or the day on Friday. That works too.
But Christmas Day now belongs to the NFL because Jerry Jones wants it to be the NFL's day. And he doesn't care what day of the week it falls on either. He said he didn't care if it's a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday. He didn't care what day of the week Christmas Day falls upon. The NFL is going to be playing Christmas Day. It's just ridiculous.
You know what's also ridiculous? Having to avoid my family by watching C.J. Stroud throw ducks all day on Christmas. So I think I prefer watching college football instead. But it's beside the point. The last point I want to make is that once again, yesterday I said it. I'm gonna say it again. The SEC is not the dominant conference. There are two teams in the SEC that have dominated for a long time, but I think we can rightfully claim the Big Ten is the superior conference in all of college football. That's my last point.
I've been saying that all year, but
but it wasn't last year.
No, it wasn't last year, but it was still a better conference.
Who did the national champion come from?
Yeah, it was the better conference. It still had better teams.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Top to bottom, the Big Ten is the best conference this year. Bottom line, last year it was the Pac-12. I'm sorry, it was.
Pac-12 was a good conference in its last year.
Yeah, very good conference.
We'll see how it looks when it comes back next year with whatever teams they pulled away from the Mountain West and everywhere else. But
2 years from now. 2 years from now.
2 years from now.
Actually, I want to talk about that real quick because it's been a little bit of a debate among UNLV fans if they should have went to the Pac-12 or not. The Pac-12 is not a Power 5 conference anymore. I'm sorry. You can't just say, "Oh, we added 6 more teams and we're back." Like that's not how that works. A Power 5 conference got Power 5 competitors. And I'm sorry, Colorado State, Utah State, and Gonzaga in basketball is not a Power 5 conference. I don't mean to.
It goes back. It goes back to the Pac. It goes back to the Pac-8 days.
Okay, yeah. well, I don't remember Boise State being part of the Pac-8. You know what I'm saying? The Pac-8 was great because they also had USC, UCLA. You know,
Bingo.
I say that. Like, I love Washington State. I love watching Washington State football. All right, Washington State is not big enough of a brand to put a Power 5 conference on it with them being the head, especially nowadays with them losing every player and coach left and right. You know, I'm sorry. I love Corvallis, Oregon for football. Nobody cares about it in the scope of college football, except sickos like us. You know, so I am not impressed. But to my point earlier, if the Pac-12 and let's say, for example, the Mountain West, where their conference champions are to play against each other for a playoff spot in a bowl game, I would watch that. I think that'd be very interesting. I think that the LA Bowl is a natural matchup already for those two conferences. So they're already at the stadium. To Jeff's point, they could spice up the bowl game, and we would all be happy again. And the winner of that gets to host a playoff game, most likely. So you know,
how many games a season are you reducing the regular season to then, Brock?
10.
10 games?
Yep.
So there's no more UMass. There's no more UMass versus Georgia.
I mean, there still would be, but there would only be one tune-up game, right? So you would only have 8 conference games, and then one of them would be reserved for non-conference rivalry games.
I could live with that. Because I mean, if it's only going to be once a week that they only play Mercer versus Alabama or something like that, then I'm fine with that instead of their usual pony show.
So the way I had it set up in my mind, right, is that if you have a natural non-conference rival, for example, Clemson, South Carolina, Washington State, things like that, you would play your in-state rival on the last week of the season after all your conference games finish. And of course, you'll play your tune-up game week 1.
Instead of the Apple Cup being played on week 3 like we got this year?
Yeah, that was awful. That was
horrifying.
And I would try to, like, it depends on scheduling because of course you got to like line things up. But I would try to have most of those rivalry games take place on Thanksgiving, like during Thanksgiving week. I think it'll be a lot of fun. You know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just a full slate of rivalry matchups, just beating the hell out of each other to end the season.
Oh, so that means George Lopez's Trojans have to come out to South Bend after Thanksgiving Day, and no more hiding. No, no more hiding and coming out in September to South Bend. You got to come there at the end of the year. I'd love it.
I never thought Notre Dame or USC should be played on any day besides the final day of the season. I think that's how it should be. And then for teams that don't have a natural rival, those are the guys that can go and have their opening game be in like the stadium games, whatever it is. It would kind of hurt the Irish a little bit because there's a lack of in terms of scheduling. But with the ACC deal that they have, the ACC can 7 games. Kind of incorporate it and make it happen. There's ways to work around these things. But I think having so you would have a regular season. Then of course
Notre Dame plays Army and Navy annually, except they don't generally. They have played Army a lot more lately than they used to, but the Navy is always going to be on Notre Dame's schedule because of the what happened during World War II, and the Navy basically saved Notre Dame. They did.
Exactly. So, I mean, like, that game is perfect, right? But you still got to fill a couple more spots. Regardless, Notre Dame will find a way. They're Notre Dame. They're a big brand. They'll figure it out. But, so then you would have a 10-game season, all right? Then you would have, of course, a conference championship game, which would be your 11th game. And then we could have the bowl games after for the conference champions, which for some would be their 12th. And those teams that win those games get automatic home games into the playoffs, or sort of home field advantage, of course, ranked out. The losers would also have home field advantage, but more like a wild card home field. They would have to go on the road later on. And then for the rest of the bowl games, for the rest of the playoffs, we could put in teams that would be automatic or at-large bids to put in to fill out like a 16-game schedule. You could have, since you would have already played all those bowl games, you could have the quarterfinals, like round of 16 or whatever, quarterfinals, semifinals at your collegiate home stadiums, and then of course a national championship game on New Year's Day. And then right after that, because of course you got to do all the scheduling thing, you have a 1 week transfer portal window so that kids can enter after the season and then coaches can move after the season. Basically, I'll give like a 2-day buffer, like from January 2nd to January 4th. That's when you make the coaching hires because things move fast in college football, right? And then for like the 5th to like the 12th would be the transfer portal window where you enter and can get recruited and everything. And then by the time the 12th ends, the portal is shut no matter what happens. Even if your coach is fired on the 13th, the portal is closed. And then
Well, I agree with shutting down the transfer portal because that whole thing that happened with Marshall this year was just disgusting.
Oh, it's awful. I hated it. And I think that
I mean, my Lord.
Yeah, by having the portal at the end, I mean, there's no taking away the portal at this point. It's Pandora's box. It's been open and we can't shut it. So
well, you should never take it away in the first place. You can regulate it better and doing better times at work.
That's right.
For the programs as well as the kids, but don't do it just for the program. See, because that's where this whole problem came from.
Exactly.
The programs had all the power. So you got to do what's best for not only the programs but for the kids, because these kids deserve their shot. They deserve to be happy where they need to be, and it shouldn't be held down by a program. Because that's the problem. That's the problem I have is they want to change things because it's not good for the programs right now. It's the evolution of things. Like you had it too far to the left, now you're swinging it back this way. Yeah. At some point, it's going to come back to the middle and make sense for both sides. But in the meantime, you don't swing it back all the way to the left just because that side is upset. No, you got to find the equilibrium in there. That's going to work.
Guess what the problem with that whole situation is, though, Jeff? You need the United States Congress to actually put in a law, and until the Congress,
you don't have to do that. You just need
because if the NCAA does this, you know it's going to be nothing but a court case.
But there you go. And that's because why? The NCAA has never gotten it.
That's right.
So if they would have gotten this right from the first place, you wouldn't have this whole mess. Okay.
But NIL
wouldn't be a thing. They'd have a better system. Where they could pay these kids. But because they wouldn't act, and they went, we're not touching this. We'll leave it to the schools. And the schools went, well, you guys are supposed to do it. And while they're doing the Spider-Man thing, the government said, well, these kids get paid. They just, you know what? You can't stop them getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. And they took it as a way out. And now they can't control it because you can't regulate name, image, and likeness. You can't do it. So it was a case of I'm not touching it, you're not touching it. Well, somebody else.
You put in the rules that you're only allowed to spend that much money on the NIL, and you shut down the transfer portal option. Even as Brock said, when a coach leaves a program, that is no reason for you to walk out of your school at that point. There is no reason for doing that. You can do it at this date.
I don't generally agree with that. If the guy that says, come to my school, I'm going to be your leader for 4 years, and at the first sign of a bigger contract runs off, I have every right to leave. You know, but the promise that he told me was that he was going to be there for my 4 years.
No, I'm talking about in season. When a coach has been fired in the season, and then you've got these guys, transfer portal. What are you doing? What the heck? No, you stay at your program, and then you get your transfer window, just like Brock said, from whatever day in January to whatever date. You get 10 days. Give them 10 days, and that's it.
Yeah, actually, I have an amendment to my plan that I totally forgot about. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't have it right now, but there is a second portal window that opens after the spring semester. That way, players will have an opportunity to meet with their new coach, discuss things. Because a 1 week window is a very hard thing. So only guys that know, like, hey, I got my stuff going, I'm gonna jump into it. And that because there's a lot of guys that jump to the portal and never play football again, right? So I would have a much larger portal window in the summertime, right after the spring semester. It's not time to figure out if this is the spot they want to be in. I would also have severely harsh penalties for coaches and programs that make hires before the end of the national championship game. Every coach, unless they are fired, should complete their season that is through the bowl game. And that's another way I would help regulate the sport. I would love a cap on NIL. Don't get me wrong. The problem is, how do you enforce it? What's it called?
And again, that goes into needing Congress to actually step up and do their job.
It's a sad state of affairs that we need the government to regulate college sports.
Well, I mean,
because you have a party that's supposed to regulate college sports.
The government they have something called antitrust legislation.
Yeah, but you have a whole body that's designed to regulate college sports and can't seem to regulate college sports. I think this is where the power conferences are going to eventually eliminate said body, because said body is no longer in control of college sports.
Yep. But again, you can do that by an act of Congress. Just goodbye NCAA, goodbye. You're done. You're gone. Which is what I've advocated for since the 70s.
Yeah, and I would also like to see. Obviously, we can't change anything in terms of conference realignment. That's just, it is what it is. But I do think that there is a way to have a much more geographic conference in terms of the SEC and the Big Ten, and just in general. I'll be honest with you, I'm not that big of a fan. I know you guys are going to disagree with me, and I understand. I'm not that big of a fan of having the top two teams go. Because, for example, right, if Washington beat Oregon last year in the regular season, it would have meant nothing if Oregon beat them in the Pac-12 championship game. I think that every game matters in college football. That's the beauty of the sport. So I think that we do need to have it as a conference, but the divisions be split that make regional sense. I think that something that should be introduced down the line.
I want to get rid of this whole region nonsense. I want those top 40 teams. I don't care what teams they are, the top 40 teams in this country, all of them put into one conference only. You boys, they're all going to travel. None of you are going to get away with playing UMass or Mercer or Citadel. Nobody gets that BS. You're playing 10 games against the best teams in this country.
But you're not going to get that as long as the ADs make the schedule.
Yeah,
the ADs are going to make schedules and help them keep the job.
And also, I don't like that at all, because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, strength of schedule does play a massive part in college football because there's so many teams, unlike the NFL. So that would absolutely, I think that it needs to become more regional. I put the paper somewhere else. This is one night I was doodling because I just love this sport so much. I actually created a map of, I think it was like 30 or something different conferences of how I'd remake it. So we'd bring back the Pac-10. There would be the Border Conference, the Southwest Conference, the Big 8. Obviously Big 10 would say the Big 10, but actually have 10 teams. We'd bring back the Big East. There'll be the ACC. I also had the Northeast, which is a bunch of really high schools in Massachusetts and Maine and that kind of area. We have the SEC in general, and then we would also have a specific portion for the Central Atlantic Coast. Of course, Virginia Techs, and things like that. Because yes, they are ACC, but sometimes it doesn't feel like ACC because Florida State playing Boston College in a potential championship game just does not feel right, So I kind of knocked it all out. I would have Texas and Arkansas back in the same conference. I'd also throw A&M in there.
I'm an old Southwest Conference. I mean, I still lived in Arkansas when they were still in the Southwest Conference. I loved the SWC. I mean, that was.
No, I think football was better when it was like that. Actually, I mean, I wasn't alive for it, but looking back,
it was.
Old tapes,
that was when Nebraska was part of that conference.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I would actually the way, because I talked about the bowl games, right? So for example, in this scenario, Texas's non-conference opponent would be Oklahoma. Now, unfortunately, we'd have to figure out a way to schedule that because I know it takes place in the Texas State Fair. So obviously, there would have to be exceptions to the rule in terms of the dates, but we can still make things happen in terms of those non-conference.
That's always been a Week 5 contest.
Yeah,
always has been.
But they did it back in the day when Texas and Oklahoma were in the same conference, so it would make sense. But the way I'd have it set up, right, it would be like the Big 8. I had Colorado, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Baylor, right? So they would be in the Big 8, and then the Southwest would have all the traditional Southwest teams. I'd throw Texas and Arkansas in there, of course, A&M, so on and so forth, and then I would have those two conferences play each other in that said bowl game that I mentioned earlier for the playoff, like the champions of those conferences play for the the playoff or whatever. I think that'd be really cool, and it would also continue those traditional rivalries because we could have that game be the Cotton Bowl. Imagine Oklahoma A&M matchup in the Cotton Bowl or Texas Nebraska. I think it would be a lot of fun. For true college football fans moving forward, and the Pac-12 of course would be connected to the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl. The Border Conference could play
the Fiesta Bowl.
They would play in the Fiesta Bowl for sure, but I don't know who they play. We have to match it up, of course. But the Peach Bowl would be SEC versus ACC because Florida State wouldn't be in the SEC. Florida State, I would keep them separate. Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, it's a whole thing. But I think it'd be kind of cool because then those bowl games would be a lot easier for people to travel to. In terms of for example, you could have it be the ACC versus the Virginia area in the Orange Bowl, the SEC versus someone in the Sugar Bowl, because that's all Louisiana based and Florida based, and I think there's a lot of potential there. That's all.
Well, you could actually put all those Florida teams, Miami, the Seminoles, the Gators, USF, UCF, you could put them all together.
So I would take Florida separate because I think they're just a strict SEC team. This is kind of how they've been throughout their entire career. But I agree with everything. UCF, USF, Florida State, Miami, as mentioned, FIU, all those guys kind of go into the single one. So then a conference championship game between them could legitimately be played between teams from Florida, Georgia, I think South Carolina is above them, right?
South Carolina. Yeah. So you could put Clemson. You could put Clemson in with them and South Carolina. You could put them together because South Carolina's not really an SEC team either. They're not really because they're not in that general area, right? They're kind of above.
Yeah, and then I would have something along the Mississippi River that would include Missouri. I mean, maybe they go Missouri to the Big 8. That might happen, but be a little above Missouri or Kansas State, maybe go somewhere else and have kind of their own conference. There's a lot of different options. It also help bring up South Dakota State, Montana as well. Imagine a playoff game in middle Montana in December. Come on. Don't tell me that doesn't make you guys excited for something, Eastern Washington hosting a playoff game on their big red field. Don't tell me that doesn't just warm your heart a little bit. I think there's so many different things that you can do that to really make it a national sport for all instead of this weird conference we're better than you, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you think you're better than us? We'll have your top dog play our top dog in this very regulated system that will allow us to actually determine who is the best of the best. So that's probably that. I get a fever dream of mine, but I think it's really cool.
Well, I mean that's a good idea.
Yeah, always the issue is going to be it's always going to be up to the school. So when you get a school that's not happy with that format, well, we'll just go independent. And that's what you're going to get. Many schools are independent for many years.
Well, UConn has remained independent now, right? I mean,
well, they were part of the American for a while.
They were, but they left.
They had to go independent.
Yeah. And again, Penn State used to be an independent school.
So was Miami. So was a bunch.
Miami was. Notre Dame was. That needs to be brought back. I'm sorry. They don't need to be part of a conference.
There's too much money.
But
too much power tied up in it.
You
never get you see Texas part of SEC, but guess what? They did it because of the money and the power.
Yep.
As long as they win in the SEC, they'll be guaranteed.
But again, Stanford and California flying all the way out to the East Coast to play games is just no. This is just
it's about money.
Yep.
Okay. The conference TV contract. And once again, if you're winning in that conference, you're always going to get preferential treatment when it comes to playoff and major bowl.
Yep.
So, speaking of which, playoffs, which is what the show is about, before we went deep into how to fix college football, let's talk about our semifinal matchup. Now they're set. Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame. An old rivalry renewed, Greg.
They are 9-9 versus each other with one tie. No team's ever won more than three games in a row against each other. Yeah. Well, you remember the tie, eh? Because it happened in 1925, but okay.
Oh, no. Wasn't there one recently?
No.
Was it even Ohio State?
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Jeff, I think the word recently might not apply here because I don't think ties.
Well, that's recent to me. I mean, Lou Holtz is still recent to me. You know, it's not going to be to somebody like you, Rock. Lou Holtz was done coaching with.
I don't think ties existed when I was born in '99. So that's.
Oh Lord,
yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Lou Holtz wasn't even coaching Notre Dame when you were born, man.
Was he at South Carolina at that point?
No, he was slurring his words on TV.
Yeah.
I honestly miss Lou Holtz and Mark Mayhill. So that's my last point. That was fun.
That's my guy.
Lou Holtz took an Arkansas team who was heavily underdogs. And he lost his best player and his running back because he caught them cheating, or was it? I think he caught him. I think he caught them with women at the bowl game. Is what happened, and he set them down, and they went out and the Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, stomped Barry Switzer's Oklahoma Sooners, and they whipped them. That's where Lou Holtz got his reputation from.
Mm-hmm.
Then when he was at Notre Dame, of course, we all know what happened in 1988. The last great season of college football that's ever been played. I don't care about the rest of these clowns.
No, I'm pretty sure there's a lot better seasons than 1988.
Oh, no. See this? I wear the Fighting Irish for a reason.
What I love about Notre Dame's national championships is like everything pre-World War II, like the 70s, won the 88, and that's it.
I still think he was jobbed in '93.
Yes, he was.
When they lost to Boston College, right?
When they lost to Boston College, but they beat Florida State, who wound up becoming the national champion. And he made Florida State the national champion in the final poll.
Yeah,
same record. You beat that team, but you weren't given a national title.
And they have 11 national titles, which is third overall, and none of them are shared. They are all individual titles, so there's no shared BS like some of these other schools have. I'm talking to you, Alabama and Michigan, you clowns.
Your title doesn't count, all right, when you have to take a train to get to your next destination. I'm sorry. If you had to shovel coal to get to an away game, your national title does not hold that much significance.
Really?
So wait, what was those comments? I want to answer Julio.
I need decaf, apparently.
Stay a rubber always, forever. Buck did say Penn State had a clear path where they are. Yes, I did, Mr. Julio. You are correct on that. Thank you, sir. And yeah, they do. I mean, Penn State has been very impressive. I know we've been arguing about nonsense for the past hour, but I guess it's a good transition. Penn State versus Notre Dame, I think, is going to be a classic 1965 matchup. I mean, that's real. Penn State, sometimes their offense is stuck in 1960 with some of the formations they make. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring, puck-heavy game. And
as you know, Brock, Notre Dame is my number one school, but as you've also seen me wearing, is my Penn State Nittany Lions jersey. And this is because it was Penn State was linebacker U. This goes back to when football was real football, before all this nonsense about the spread and all this other garbage that came out there. It was the running backs against the middle linebackers that mattered in games. This is going to be that type of a game, and I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to say who taught those linebackers, but they were darn good.
Now we won't go there.
Listen, we do not talk about property of the state.
Well, he's not far from Happy Valley. That's the funny part. He is literally right down the road.
He's right down the road.
As the correctional facility to get to Happy Valley.
That's so disturbing, honestly.
Listen, I've taken that drive. It is literally UC correctional, top, right before you see the other.
Yep. But again,
So-
this is traditional football. This is the stuff that I personally love.
Yeah, I love not throwing the ball more than 20 yards downfield. It's great. You know, it's the best. I love having a single high safety only to prevent the big run.
There you go. That's what football was. These kids in high school need to play a 4-3 defense. You need a fullback and a running back in your backfield at all times with a tight end, and that's it. You don't need all these wide receivers and these quarterbacks throwing the football out. No, you don't need that.
No need for the 4-3, my friend. A nice 6-2 is what would be excellent. We're gonna run the 6-2 against the wing T. That's really
No way.
Honestly, bucket helmets while we're at it. Like those big ass bucket helmets you put soup in, you can eat out of it as well. That's what I want to see.
My leather helmet. I want to go back to the leather.
Honestly, leather was probably the best. You fold it up into a little triangle, you can stick it to your back pocket, you could run wind sprints. You know, have your
There
head
you go. See?
frolicking down the field.
Yes, nothing says player safety like leather helmet. You know, today we're all worried about, you know, concussions and CTE. Let's bring out the leather helmet.
Hey, I'm just saying, CTE did not exist when they were wearing leather helmets.
They didn't know what CTE was.
That's right. They had no
And
idea.
if you don't know what it was, it did not exist. Remember that.
They just
Oh,
said
no, it existed.
That's all they said in those days.
No,
There's no diagnosis to it. Other than that dude is crazy. That's all they said.
John
You
Jacob
look
Smith
at-
just had a
you
bad
look-
case of the crazies. All right.
You look at what happened to Mike Webster and other players like that. I mean, my Lord, that was all CTE before CTE was around.
Yeah, and notice Mike Webster did not wear a leather helmet and played on concrete for whatever field they were using back in the day. So just want to add that little.
Three Rivers Stadium was a concrete field. Yes,
That's
it was
what I'm
concrete.
saying. So I mean,
they got Chuck Bednarik talking about namby-pamby ball players. We used to go out there with both legs broken.
And he was a real football player, unlike this kid from Colorado this year who goes out and plays running back and cornerback. Chuck Bednarik was a linebacker.
I love football, Greg, but he played against 220-pound linemen.
Yeah, but still, he beat Vince Lombardi's Packers practically by himself.
Vince Lombardi was 5'8". What are we talking about?
No, he was 35 years old, Brock. He was 35 years old, had not played linebacker for 2 seasons. He had just been playing center. The Eagles linebacker got injured. Bednarik went out, and he basically won the 1960.
It's a lot easier to play linebacker when you don't have Randall McDaniel lining up in front of you. You have John Joe Jacob Hyper Smith. All right, that was Paul Horning and Jim Taylor that he was stopping. Jerry Kramer on my offensive line right now. My quarterback's getting whacked on his butt every single play. I'm sorry. What are we talking about?
I would love to have seen Bednarik go up against Larry Allen. That would have been a sight.
Yeah, no. It would have been it would have murder. All right. Old Larry would have had a dip in his mouth coming through and put the old Chuck boy into the ground 6 feet under. What are we talking about? All right.
Well, we're talking about Penn State and Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so once again, we said it last night with Ohio State. We believe they have the upper hand versus Texas. Who has the upper hand in this?
I don't think either team has the upper hand.
Like Texas, Ohio State, or Penn State, Notre Dame.
Penn State, Notre Dame.
Penn State, Notre Dame. I think
the under has the upper hand.
Well, whatever they come up with for a line on this game.
The line is 17.5, and I'm still betting the under.
Let's see if Vegas is really good.
Let's see if Vegas is on, man.
It's gonna be a nice 6-9 matchup. All right, and it's gonna be bad too. Someone's gonna kick the game winner in the third, and they're not gonna be able to score. So we have a punt battle like all over. It's like artillery shells flying over. It's gonna be like the punts. That's how bad it's going to be. All right, they're gonna line Tyler Warren up in the backfield, and they're gonna make him run QB power, and it's gonna be awful. And I'm gonna love it every single second of it. It's gonna be fantastic. All right, Jordan Clark is gonna pretend he's his dad Ryan and just clock somebody coming up the A gap, and it's gonna be good stuff.
You ready for this?
What's up?
Notre Dame is favored by 1.5.
That's a terrible line. Penn State
No,
is
it's not. No, it's not.
What do you mean?
It's a push line. Anything less than 3 is a push line.
Yeah, the whole game's gonna be a
I'm not
push
even
line.
gambling.
The whole game's gonna be pushing the guy up the field. That's gonna be the football game.
That's the easiest push line. Anything under 3 points is the push.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I do think Penn State is going to win because I think they have better defenders and they play they're much better equipped to handle Riley Leonard than most teams are in this college football playoffs. This is me being serious now. It's not me being a hater because I think Notre Dame has just as equal a shot to win it. I just think that Penn State's defense is going to be the difference maker. The question for Drew Aller is now everybody is on Drew Aller in the draft community right now. I know you gentlemen have noticed. Oh, Drew Aller should come back. He should come out this year. Be a top 5 pick. And you know what? He might be just because of the current quarterback class. But this is going to be this is a CJ Stroud Georgia game for him. This is going to be the ultimate test to see if he can handle playing against an elite defense. Obviously, we see him go up against Ohio State and Michigan, which have been the most elite defenses he's played against in years past, and performed to top standard. He's going to have his entire arsenal of weapons surrounding him. This is going to be his. I don't even see a lot of big time plays with Aller or even big time throws. I want to see the consistent throws to be able to make plays off play action, able to hit guys in certain windows and zones underneath, be able to not throw that costly interception when the game gets tight, and be able to get the first down conversion when he needs so. If he can do that, I think that Penn State is going to be able to win this game. On the flip end, if he makes a single mistake, Notre Dame has the ability to not only pick him off, but to capitalize on that either in the return or also when they get the ball back. They're going to be able to run the ball a fair amount to get into field goal range. And the kicker that they got now, whatever injury concerns he had, I don't have him no more because he's been absolutely flawless in 2 straight games now. So Aller's going to decide this game, but I think with Penn State's defense and how they'll game plan with him with Andy Kay, I think that Penn State, wins this one. Close, but wins this one.
I think we got to look at it. The line of scrimmage. Will Penn State's the offensive line be able to keep that pass rush, Notre Dame pass rush off throughout? If they could do that, they have a very good chance of winning this game. If they don't, that's their playoff chance. Because
it also matters that Notre Dame's defensive front gets off of their being blocked. You saw it all day long. That's why Travis Etienne couldn't go anywhere. Notre Dame's defensive front gets off of their of being blocked, and they attack. They attack, along with Kaiser and the other linebackers for Notre Dame, and even the safeties. Snead, more tackles were lost today. And Xavier, he's gonna be waiting for Drew Aller's passes. I mean, this guy's because Penn State has one big weakness on their offense, and that's their wide receivers.
Well, that's going to be a big question because we know the inconsistency of the corners for Notre Dame. So they got to make the plays. If they make the plays, Notre Dame's going to have some issues.
Right.
But once again, it comes back to you got to keep Drew Aller clean. You see Notre Dame week after week get there with 4, and when they blitz, it makes it even worse. So if they're able to hold up on the edges, stop those defensive ends from turning the corners quickly, and give him time to set up and go through his first couple of reads, I think that's going to be big.
And that's good. That's going to be the fun part of this, because again, if Notre Dame's defense causes turnovers, just like we saw against Georgia, just like we saw against Indiana, Riley Leonard will make you pay.
Yeah, I think red zone execution on both, but on offense and defense is going to be the deciding factor. We saw the struggles, the painful struggles that some of the teams, especially today, we watched Notre Dame and Georgia, the teams that don't seem to have a good plan for creating mismatches, whether it be height or speed or whatever, in the red area, right? And a lot of teams, when they face the struggle in the red, but if they're able, whoever's able to when they get down there, get touchdowns as opposed to field goals. And when you do have to go for a field goal, get it in there, like get it between the uprights. But it's sort of obvious. Like the team that scores points, and against a good team, scoring points is obviously much more difficult to say than to do. But I think that's what's going to be the determining factor. I think if whether it's throwing to the backs or throwing to the tight ends or running Drew Aller, who is another big, strong kid who could run. I mean, all the things we saw Riley Leonard do, Drew Aller can do all those same things, but he's a better passer. So if they are willing to expose him to taking hits, they can create some real problems because though none of the wide receivers can scare you, they do have a tight end who runs well enough that if he makes somebody miss or hurdles them or stiff arms them, whatever, once he gets downfield, he can run away from safeties. I mean, we've seen him do it. So that if that, for me, that's what they've got to do. And then
I've just sent Andy Kotelnicki an email, by the way. I want him to use the exact same game plan he used against Ohio State, where Tyler Warren rushes for more yards than Nick Singleton, and Nick Singleton catches more than Tyler Warren. That's all I need. That's it. We're done.
I think he learned from that game, but most likely Katron Allen will be Penn State's number 1 wide receiver. Tyler Warren will again be the number 1 rusher, and somehow Nick Singleton will be the number 1 passer. It's going to be a very odd thing the way Penn State plays in the big time. But honestly, the real thing for me is I do not think the whole time. I think it's going to show up against Notre Dame. Abdul Carter, I think, is where he's really going to earn his stripes. I've been saying that this playoff is when he's going to elevate himself into being a top 5 pick. I still believe it. I think he'll have a monster game against the Fighting Irish. The difference will be, unlike what Georgia did against Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame will be able to adjust and stop Carter as the game goes on, running certain different protections and, of course, stunts and stuff. But I think he's going to have a big game early. The question will be, if they start showing that, who else is going to show up for Penn State?
Antoine Knapp, the left tackle for Notre Dame, was a kid from Georgia who wanted to be a Bulldog and was not recruited by anybody from Georgia. And he's a freshman. And you look at the work that he has done this year, it has been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Absolutely phenomenal. For being a true freshman, this kid has stood on Riley Leonard's blind side, protected him very, very nicely. So Abdul Carter, you're going to have some work cut out for you. It's not going to be a cakewalk.
So we're getting up to the final part of it, guys. So we know Ohio State, Texas. That's going to be a big matchup where we're talking about, of course, 2 quarterbacks, McCord and, of course, Quinn Ewers. Here on this side, not the glamour matchup with quarterbacks, right? Both of these guys had moments of greatness, and then they had moments where they looked very, very human. Okay, the Superman Clark Kent comparison. At this point, with this matchup here, who's it most important, most imperative to have big number? We see it today. You can win with Riley Leonard putting up mediocre numbers. We saw it with Penn State. Drew Aller threw 3 TDs, but he didn't exactly have to light up because they were running the ball so well.
That's right.
Once again, who is it going to be more imperative on to have the bigger game?
Well, of all the quarterbacks, the one that I still need to see, though the last 2 games have been the best 2 games, and I've watched him, from Kansas State to Ohio State. Can he keep it going? If Will Howard keeps playing like that, I don't think anybody can beat Ohio State. I don't know if he can keep going.
Sorry.
I don't know if he can keep going like that. I keep thinking at some point, it's like that commercial. I don't know if it's E-Trade or whatever it is, where it's like, I'm not a CFO. In fact, I'm not even human. I'm cake. I need to see that. Like, is he indeed like a highly respected CFO, or is he cake?
And this game's also being played in the Cotton Bowl. It's not going to be at AT&T Stadium. It's in the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
The Cotton Bowl has some little thing called wind down there
It does.
that Will Howard never really performed in at Kansas State. That was my issue with him, was against the wind. He always tried to force that football, and it was just horrifying to watch.
Right.
But again, like you said, the last 2 weeks, who is this guy? This isn't Will Howard that we've seen.
It's not the guy I've been watching. I mean, I literally have 12 games saved of Will Howard, and I watched them, and then I watched the last 2, and like I said, I literally struggled to believe it was the same person. Like, but if he continue, if this new Will Howard, if Will Howard 2.0 continues to do what he's been doing, I don't see how anybody can beat Ohio State, because they have enough of everything else, right? On every other place, offense, defense, and even special teams, that the one thing that gave you a chance of beating them was inconsistency and mistakes from the quarterback position. If somehow that's magically disappeared, I just don't see anybody beating them. But
Sarkisian has to have his defense on their game to begin with. Not like what we saw against Clemson, not what we saw against Arizona State. Those defenses were giving up yardage plays consistently, which is not the Texas team that we saw earlier this year.
Right. Well, I think the thing I saw, especially against Arizona State, which is an interesting offense, right? It's got elements of spread and elements of like old school power eye and elements of West Coast offense. It's a fun offense. Like, I want to really dig into it more. The season's over. I don't have as many other games to watch, but I'm going to go back and try to like reverse engineer like what it is, what the concepts are, and what the principles are and rules are in that offense. But it's fascinating from what I've seen. And people like to say, well, that's all just Cameron Skattebo, who is an amazing, incredible talent, and sort of a once in a generation, literal once in a generation player. Like, people use the term generational way too freely. His ability is truly generational. A guy who has that kind of power, that kind of agility, those kinds of hands, and that vision, and then the ability to literally punt, pass, and kick, right? I mean, it's like what guys like Paul Hornung and Charlie Trippey were doing 70, 80 years ago. But the concepts, like, even beyond the talent that he brings to the table, the things that they can do. And if that tight end had showed up the way that I thought he would, they win that game, right? I don't know what was Meteor is a real talent, but he for some reason doesn't make enough plays, and that's why he's probably a day 3 prospect who has what looks like top 50 pick talent, but never seems to quite put it all together. Whatever, that's another show. But I think that there's going to be a moment where Abdul Carter has to show he can do something besides just beat you with pure bend and speed rush, right? Because his pass rushing arsenal is one move. It's the same move, and it's incredibly effective. But somebody who really understands offensive line play and offensive line technique will say, "Oh, okay, I can just overset because you don't have the counter." So he's got to. This thing he's been saving it, but he better break out that counter move, because if he does that, he can continue to be effective. But he just doesn't ever vary it up.
Well, I'll tell you who's varying it up right now in performing is Jackson Dart. Ole Miss is leading Duke 17-7 in track.
Now you just had to go and ruin my.
Well, listen, I'm just
of the SEC.
I'm just making sure that we're letting people know what the current score is of the game. That they, some of them are watching on probably a screen while they're watching.
Yes, very true, very true.
Without Malik Murphy, what do we expect?
Yeah, this is the down.
Well, Ole Miss is without Trey Harris and some people as well, but that's not, to me, that's not the big story, right? The big story to me in this particular game, besides whatever it is that Jackson Dart does, is we talked about coaching, right? We talked about the coaching masterclass we saw, and I'm like everyone else. I have criticized Lane Kiffin at times. They usually have a great initial plan. They often look darn near unbeatable, and then you adjust, and then they don't sometimes, and then all of a sudden, this team that was just moving the ball all over the place now isn't, right? You've made an adjustment. You change the coverage you're using, or you change some things in the front, or you go to a 5-man front or whatever. You do something different. And then I see them sometimes not adjust to your adjustment. To me, the story of this game, because Manny Diaz is, once again, one of the better, I guess he's not a young coach anymore. I guess he's in that middle phase of his career now. I still think of him as young, but
he's still young compared to the field.
Right. I mean, these are still two, even though they're experienced, they're two fairly young coaches.
He's a mere babe compared to Kirby Smart,
Right. These are guys that I still think of as young, both the coaches. But, I remember, obviously, when Lane was, this bright young wunderkind everyone was talking about as an assistant who was one day going to be a head coach. Of course, being Monty's, tag-along son. But that's what I want to see. I want to see when the adjustments are made by Duke, and they will make adjustments that will take some of the things away that right now Ole Miss has so much success with. Will they be able to adjust to that adjustment? If they do, then they continue on and win. If they're able to, like I said, if they aren't able to handle whatever Duke does to adjust, I think Duke will have enough to take, even with Bellin the fourth, their I guess really projected third string quarterback, I think, because I think they also lost their second string to the portal, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But he, I think, has an opportunity, one, to sort of put himself on the map to be the starter going forward. But two, like I said, for the purpose of winning this game, I think that's what's going to be determinative is, can you continue to find ways to do the things or do different things? Like I said, if they do take that away, that'll allow you to keep being effective. Because there's still a talent disparity in Ole Miss's favor, even with their losses to the portal and guys who are sitting to prepare for the draft. They still have more just pure physical talent on the field.
I think we covered everything, John.
I mean, it's official when Sports Illustrated's Brock Vieira says it.
Whoa, no. I am not Sports Illustrated's Brock Vieira. I am simply Brock, your wild Hawaiian nephew.
Woo!
Show. So, no, but
so happens to work for Sports Illustrated.
And remember, I don't care whether
the Wild Hawaiian Nephews were a tag team act in the 70s.
That's right. Yep. But again, you remember when he comes up to the combine, Jeff, when Brock is at the combine on film, I want him doing those 25 push-ups. Yes, you, Brock.
You can want whatever you want. I want $1 million and I've got it. But I'm looking outside my house and I got no cash and a box. So
you know I'm going to mention that, Brock, when I go into my Gunny Highway.
That's right.
The director says he wants his 25 now. There, stack. Push the Panther Piss, get down here, give me 25.
Sometimes, Jeff, I don't know if that voice is. First of all, one thing, Greg, I just looked it up. Cotton Bowl is actually being played at AT&T Stadium. Unfortunately, is not an actual bowl. I just looked up. So
it is.
Yes, you're a Cowboy fan. You know Jerry soaks up every dollar into that.
Oh yeah, I forgot. The Cowboys don't need the stadium after Sunday. I forgot.
And secondly, if you ever wondered why I never went to prison, it's because I don't want to hear people sound like Jeff Barnes making that voice at me in a confined facility. Because I'm not gonna that scared the hell out of me. And I want to come home.
That's the Clint Eastwood Gunny
Clint.
That's all I love about you, Jeff. You're such a cinephile. You know all these great classic films, all these great actors. And
man, listen, I only am scratching the surface of a film connoisseur, my man. There's way more than me. I just remember what I see. That's all it is.
Fair.
Gran Torino, another great Clint Eastwood movie.
Excellent.
He's phenomenal in it.
Yeah.
He is so
I also love how the actor that played the kid never acted again after that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
But again, I mean, hey, there's lots of one-hit wonders in Hollywood, just as there are in the music industry and in football and all this other one-hit wonders. Tim Tebow was a one-year wonder. Goodbye.
yeah, but most one-hit wonders also have a body of work that is not wonderful. Right? This gentleman did a one shot, knocked out of the park, and retired.
I'll never match that again. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. Yeah.
But I know this movie's gonna be rewatched. My royalties have been coming in for a long time. I'm good.
Well, don't feel bad. I mean, if you think about, I forget my man's name. They played Short Round. He was in the Goonies and he was in Indiana.
Oh yeah, and he's back, right? He's back.
He took years off.
Years off.
He came back a couple of years ago.
No, he's back.
And Lane Kiffin's now up 24-7.
Yeah, the slot fade, man. That was a pretty slot fade. Daquan Wright used that little. There's a way to push off, and he knows the way, right? I'll give him credit. Once again, don't fully extend your arms. You just throw out little light jab with the open hand call. They never call that little quick one. Boom, they never call it.
Nope. Oh, and Shedeur and Dion are going to be at the East-West Shrine Bowl. What happened to the Senior Bowl being this big deal? Oh, Jim Nagy, you didn't get Shedeur. I'm sorry.
Well, he didn't get
Shedeur. You are such a Sanders hater. It's unbelievable, Greg.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know.
You won your team a Super Bowl.
My problem with the Senior Bowl has always been the same issue. Is that he sticks to his 300 guys on his list and he doesn't move. He doesn't bring enough HBCU kids in there. I don't like it.
Wait,
that's the reason why I don't like it.
Of Jim Nagy, or it's a criticism of the Sanders family?
No, I'm not criticizing.
He's hitting both at once. There's 2 punches.
I'm not criticizing Shedeur or Dion, but if you want me to, I will criticize the Colorado Buffaloes program. 0-6 against top 25 teams in 2 years.
Wrong.
2-9.
Wrong. The little first game they beat us like the 17th ranked team in the nation. What are we talking about here?
They're 0-6 versus top 25 teams.
TCU team. What are we talking about?
They're 0-6.
No, they're not 0-6. Oh my God! No,
they're 0-6.
They're not 0-6.
They're 0-6. They're 2-9. They're 2-9. They're 2-9.
TCU.
They're 2-9 versus 2-9. So there you go again. Dion and Travis and all these guys. They're all superstars. Yes, they are.
First of all, if it was not Sanders, we wouldn't even have this conversation. We would be praising the coaching job done at Colorado. All right, Colorado, since I started watching college football, has had 1 winning season before Dion came in. 1, and that was in 2 different conferences. May I just include that little notion?
Exactly.
All right, so he got them back to the Big 12. They were contending for the conference. What more do you want?
Well, what do I want? I want them to be at the East-West Shrine Bowl in Dallas. That's where they're going to be. They're going to the East-West Shrine Bowl. They're not going out to the Senior Bowl.
So what's the problem?
Right.
I was praising them for choosing
the artistry of one Senior Bowl. For those who are
your praise tone needs a little help. I'm not gonna lie.
it's so angry. They can't get over the anger.
I just like giving people their flowers when they do, and they've done a phenomenal. For Colorado, the turnaround at Colorado has been phenomenal. Actually, to jump off Joe's point, the Big 12 in general has a whole host of coaches that are representing what it means to be a modern coach of college football. Just want to shout them out real quick. Kay Dillingham, ASU, Kalani Sitake, BYU, Deion Sanders, Colorado, Matt Campbell, Iowa State, amongst great others. That I think the Big 12 conference will be a much better place in this year because they have forward-thinking coaches running the programs.
He didn't say Mike Gundy.
Yeah. What the hell's wrong with you, Brock?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Oklahoma State is an innovative program who knows how to get around DUI checkpoints. All right, because Ollie Gordon did not show up to that lesson that day.
He doesn't have to get around him. He's Mike Gundy, and they're not going to arrest Mike Gundy. Come on, man.
I'm a 40-year-old man, and don't you forget this. And then,
they coming the whole way.
You are talking about 2011 Big 12 champion Mike Gundy, right? So you better watch. You are talking about 2021 Fiesta Bowl, I think, or 2022 Fiesta Bowl champion of Mike Gundy. All right, so show some respect.
Well, listen. All I remember is, not only the beatings he took this year, but that conference championship beat he took last year after he eliminated Oklahoma. And everybody got all excited about him playing in Texas, and it was a coming out party for the Ewers. He hasn't recovered from that yet.
Well, it also helps when your quarterback Alex Bowman has one throw, and that's I would try to throw it as deep as possible. And the route is for 30 yards. The ball's going to go about 27, and then Texas is going to be up 21-0 before people know it. So, first of all, I wanted to add real quick. I know we just keep coming back to topics, but I don't even care about that conference championship game. The one before that, where Oklahoma State won, they got into the college football playoff, and they were stopped at the 1 on 4 straight plays by Baylor. We don't talk enough about how egregious that was. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Dave Miranda, beat Mike Gundy and then Lane Kiffin in back-to-back games. Like, what a way to peak.
Listen, the mullet has no more power on it. It doesn't have any power in it. Okay? There's nothing magical coming out of Oklahoma State. Okay.
Nothing magical in Stillwater any longer. No.
Which honestly irritates me because they had some talented players on their roster.
They do. Like, there's nothing magical coming. Listen, did we even talk about Bedlam this year?
Nope.
Well,
but again, Bedlam
didn't happen. So
didn't happen, right? But the last one, right? The last one was won by Oklahoma State, and of course Bowman the Showman, right? Who I think was the MVP of the game, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Turns out all you need to beat Oklahoma is a 30-year-old. It's very easy. Turns out if you can find a Chris Weinke, you're gonna beat the Sooners every single time.
But also shout out to Matt Rule, who I believe is the right man for the job down in Nebraska as well.
He's good enough, I'm sorry, Matt Rule rubbed me the wrong way when his players did not shake Iowa's hands in the season finale. I guess I'm still trying to
in the words
Osborne would have allowed that to happen.
In the words of Samuel L. Jackson in The Great White Hype, you reap what you sow. Okay, you go out there, you do something like that. Be prepared. If you piss them off, it gets you. You own it. You earned it. Yeah, plain and simple. Yes. Do the right thing, shake a hand, and just play the game. If you want to make it personal,
which is what Jeff and I spoke about the night that Michigan and Ohio State played each other, and Florida State played each other, and they both had those damn stupid flag incidences. That is BS. No time for that garbage. You lose that game, you shake your opponent's hand, and you leave that field. That's it. That's all. You don't plant your flag on the other team's field. It's just stupid. Absolutely stupid to do something like that.
Or perhaps the spoils the victor, and if you lose, you just go into your locker room. That would also help the situation. I would say Texas planted their flag in Ann Arbor, and no fight broke out then.
Well, I'll say this because I've experienced that nonsense. I lost the championship game because our guy decided to warm up at the 50-yard line on somebody else's field during the championship, and it darn near started a brawl at half. And that team was dead to rights at halftime. They came out fired up in the second half, and every time we dealt them a death blow, they came right back. Okay, so you want to wake a team up that you have dead to rights? Go ahead and do stupid stuff.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. As much, I'll be honest, as I don't like the flag playing. I know I've been on like saying this back and forth. And like this is my real opinion. I don't like the flag planting at all. But what I did like about it was it felt for the first time in a couple of years, every rivalry game across the board, even to the NFL the next day, it was awesome. Like it had juice for like the first time in a long time. It felt like it was meaningful again. And we don't have these things anymore because of transfer portal. These players are not growing up in the same system or going to their local schools anymore where they've had these traditions ingrained into them since they were youngsters. And it means something, you know? And at least for like the first time in a long time in North Carolina, NC State, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, again, even the NFL the day after for some reason, it felt nice to see the animalistic competitiveness that makes organized football such a phenomenal game.
So in other words, you're telling me that it's okay for my Navy midshipmen to plant their flag at West Point? Yeah, okay.
No. First of all, they've only played at their home stadiums like once or twice in like the past like 60 years, so that wouldn't happen. And secondly, that's a war crime. So no.
So if it's a war crime for the Navy and the Army not to do that to each other, it's a war crime for every other school not to plant their flag.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that I could do that are not considered war crimes that if the military did would definitely send them to the Hague. So no, I that's not how that works. Like,
I don't care what school you are, what school you are up against. I mean, if Boise State, who beat your UNLV Running Rebels twice, planted their flag, that's still stupid. It's still dumb. It's just plain stupidity. It has nothing to do with what happened for the 60 minutes of solid football entertainment. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see that BS go on afterwards. You shake that opponent's hand and you leave. That's it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I never got into the whole flag. We didn't have them when I was in high school. At Grambling, they didn't really use them. That seems to be more of a modern thing anyway. We have them with the militia, but we never took it on the road.
No,
you know. So and it was only when we ran out the helmet. It wasn't used for anything else. So this whole thing of using it at the end of a game and running around and standing on the sideline with it, we had the flag for like the American flag and all that stuff for special events. But that's the only time and even then, somebody else ran out with the flag. The team wasn't running.
Right.
So it's a different thing now where it's become like part of the culture of high school and college because we have it at high school level and it causes a problem. I can remember a couple of years ago, our JV beat our local rival school. And they won and they planted the flag at the 50. Their varsity head coach came over there fuming. So the next year when they beat the brakes off of us on the varsity level, it was because him and the JV guys that came up to varsity next year made sure they put every bit of it on. So it's that kind of thing. It doesn't get forgotten. It becomes personal when you start bringing things like that into it. Listen, just you want to wave your flag at midfield, wave your flag at midfield. There's nothing wrong. You want to go planting it into the 50. It's the same thing as you running down somebody's whole sideline in the pregame. That was an unwritten rule. You didn't do that in the pregame. You ran out to the 50 and you cut across. You never ran down somebody's whole sideline from end zone to end zone. You stayed to the visitor side of the field. You stopped at the 50 and you cut across. You never went all the way down. That was always an unwritten rule. Now it seems like every tradition and norm is being given the, and that's kind of what's really doing it, is because the coaches still remember the traditions and the norms. And for some of them to sit back and let it happen makes it go, okay, that's what we're doing. So the coaches are like, if they're going to disrespect you, now it's tit for tat.
You gentlemen are right about all of it. I just want to add this little addendum. Obviously, this all, it goes I believe before that, but at least for me, the thing I remember the most when it came to the fresh flag planting was Mayfield doing it at the shoe with Oklahoma.
Yeah. And that caused a start.
That caused as much as Mayfield isn't grown up now and is probably in the NFL and is a mature quarterback, let's not forget he was suspended for a little bit on his senior night because of what happened the week before at Kansas. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, Jeff, it's the coach's job to curtail that behavior.
Yes.
Bob Stoops, suspended him maybe a bit too late, but or might have been Lincoln, I forget which one, but at least he tried. So it is what it is. Unfortunately,
I think it was Lincoln. Lincoln.
So unfortunately, work is gentlemen. So I wish you all a wonderful day, and I wish everyone a great college football playoffs. Have a good one.
Take care, Brock.
Well, guys, we've come to the end of it.
We have.
Yeah, so there'll be probably some more coming in a couple of weeks. We're talking semifinal matchup.
Yep.
So we'll see the crew that'll be together for that. I may be on the road again.
The Thursday night and Friday night.
Okay, so it's during the week. So I won't be here.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday night for the semifinals, and then the final is the 20th. Yeah. Unfortunately, Brock had to leave because I really wanted to hear.
You weren't getting any more, Greg. You got a whole lot out of him tonight of conciliation. He wasn't giving you any more.
Really?
No, he wasn't going to give you any more, man.
Oh.
Enjoy it. Matter of fact, you know what, Greg? It's actually on air. It's recorded, so you can go back and play this to your heart's content. You can just loop it.
I know. I get to see Brock have to apologize again and again. I love that. That's a beautiful moment for old Greg. Notre Dame. Congratulations. They play Penn State, and like I said earlier, it's going to be old time football, which is what I enjoy. I don't care for all this air raid or I don't care about those things. I want to see men pounding each other into the ground. And
whoa.
That's what we're going to see.
And that's why Brock does not want to end up in prison.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But it's going to be a war. It's going to be a war.
Well, Greg, for old time's sake.
No, Greg. Notre Dame isn't the greatest school ever. You have to try at least and be biased. Another crazy college football Saturday is in the books. So
I was very honest earlier. I said this is going to be a very close game between Penn State and Notre Dame. I have not made a prediction. I did not make any prediction because, of course, Courtney is our social media manager here at Team NBS Media, and the State Nittany Lion true. And I said to her in a DM chat, our two schools are going to play each other, and it's going to be a war.
Yeah, listen, I understand. Listen, I have family and friends that graduated from Penn State. And,
Penn State, yes.
Yeah, so I wholeheartedly understand it's going to be a rough week. But nevertheless, we get through this whole thing. And we've gotten through 2 hours of this and talking about the future matchups. And next time it'll be about the matchups and the potential championship game. So,
this Saturday night, I am going to be hosting the Final Word. I'm going to have Keith Richards on, and we're going to talk about the National Basketball Association because I'm tired of watching football players 24/7 like I have been for the last couple of months. And we're going to talk about the NBA. Oh. And, we're going to discuss the NBA and probably a little English Premier League football. Because the British invented the game. It's not soccer, okay? It is football. Understand this. There's American football, and there's the EPL and the La Liga and all those other great European leagues and South American leagues. But again, in America, you guys call yourselves as Major League Soccer. I don't understand what soccer is. I understand football.
Well, that's because you're Canadian, Greg. Down here in America, we say soccer.
No, I was born
Down
in
here in
the
America, we say
US.
soccer. There's only one football down here in America. That's football. We want guys in pads running up and down that field. That's what we want. We don't want to see no guys kicking the ball around, going one time in 90 minutes. We don't do that here. That's not. Here in America, we call football football. That's just what we do.
See, Joe, look at Joe. He's telling you to blame Canada. Joe, you settle down now about blaming Canadians.
Yes, even Julio comes in football. Yes, not football, football.
That's in Espanol. That's actual in Espanol, which is the proper word. There's no such thing as soccer in Spanish. No,
it is. No, but in America it is. So that's exactly where we are. There we go. There we go. There we go. This is Katie, you Johnny. Good job.
But we will be on at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday night. And yeah, we're gonna have the final word on what's going on with the National Basketball Association. And then I will finish off the program with my final word. And we'll see what I come up with.
Okay. Bill, I know you got a whole bunch of things in the pipeline. Let them know what's going on.
Position rankings. I am tweaking them. Bowl season is having not too much effect. I try not to be, prisoner of the moment, but I do like to sort of see some of these players facing top competition throughout the playoffs and bowl season, things like that. So that's one thing that'll be dropping soon. My all underappreciated team as well is about to drop first, second, third, and honorable mention. And that is all levels, right? It's NAIA, Division III, Division II, FCS, FBS, all in one kit and caboodle. And what else? I'm working on trying to get an interview with the new head coach at Sacramento State, Mr. Brendan Marion, who I think is one of the most brilliant minds in offensive football. And he's going to restore the sting, right? I guess, I don't know if that's a term they use, but a lot of Sacramento State's former players are excited about him. Ryan Coogler, of course, who was a wide receiver there, has been talking about Sacramento State football, which he does sometimes anyway, but he's been talking more about it recently. I won't be surprised if they get some hype videos out of that ex player who I still have my notes on, Ryan Coogler, quick little receiver back in his day. But I think he could have played indoors if he really wanted to. He wasn't like NFL talent. He definitely could have played at a lower level of professional ball. But once again, that's another show. And I'm going to do an all bowl team also for the top performers in bowl seasons. So that'll happen once all the bowl games are done. That's what I'm working on.
Well, it's the final week of the NFL season, so you'll have moving the chains back this weekend for the final week of regular season.
Yep.
We'll wrap up our regular season pitch champion, which yours truly is currently sitting in the top spot with a nice cushy 3-game lead over the competition.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
the Browns and the Bears just killed me on my lone work this year. They just
double-digit game behind, baby. You weren't catching up. It's okay. It's all right. You're not catching up, Greg. You may quite.
And the Packers disappointed me on Sunday night as well, because that was my one lone wolf pick this week. The Packers, me going go Pack go, and what do? They disappointed me again, 27-25. What is wrong with you Packers? You gave up too many points early on yet again, and then Jordan Love, tried to come back, but he just couldn't
Serious
get it.
comeback, yes. The
I knew Skull was taking that game. I said it beforehand. Listen, I think the Packers are still a very good team. I believe they're in the play.
Oh, the Packers are in. I think the Packers are going to win at least one playoff game. Like they're going to be.
They're going to shock somebody, unless it's Minnesota. Well, no, maybe Detroit.
They could. I think they might end up playing. No, because first round.
Minnesota is going to be no wild card hosting.
Right. They could be facing.
The Packers could be facing the
Eagles. That was the good thing about the old format. The highest wild card used to host.
They could be playing the Eagles. The
Eagles. Right. They could be facing the Eagles.
And that's a winnable game.
Yeah. And the Rams are going to be hosting a game as well.
Right. Versus Tampa Bay.
I think if Tampa Bay wins their division, Tampa Bay goes up.
I think that's what it would be. Yeah.
Joe, if you are in the chat, can you respond to let me know? I just want to make sure whether this is the weekend we're going with moving the chains on both days or just Sunday. I want to make sure I'm telling everybody right. I want to say Sunday morning and totally skip Saturday. So if you're in the chat, just let me know if I am correct. It's actually both days. So
I sent you my picks for Saturday.
Yeah, those picks are in. Those will go on the pick board. As such, everybody's picks will be on there just like last week. So when we're together on Sunday morning, those picks will have been either correct or incorrect. They'll be marked properly. We'll know where we're going into the Sunday game. And we should have virtually a full slate of Sunday games minus the ones on Saturday. So nevertheless, Joe hasn't responded yet, so we'll just have to get it off air. But nevertheless, tune and watch out for potentially 2 episodes of Moving the Chains this week. I know we're definitely doing that for playoffs. I think we're going to do it for playoff Saturday and playoff Sunday. So I think that's one of the big things we're going to do there. So
I know I'll be hosting something over the weekend.
So that might be the Saturday show.
Yeah, I think I'm hosting the Saturday. Yeah.
So we are doing it this weekend. We'll find out once we get the times. We'll get all that out to you via the Team NBS media account. But until then, with Greg Rector, the amazing dude, for the now departed SI's writer now, Broccoli. We're going in myself. I'm going to say thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in and sticking around.
Thank you so very much.
And we will definitely see you for the next set of plays.
Indeed. Happy New Year.